Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective. This is your host, Troy Hooper, and we are always sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants. Today, I have the privilege of having a conversation with another gentleman that I don't know very well, which is always fun and interesting. As you know, I tend to talk to a lot of people I know very well in this industry for a long time, and I'm enjoying the exploration of meeting with folks from different brands, particularly lately. So you'll hear a series of these back to back where I'm talking to CEOs and brand founders that are scaling emerging brands predominantly. And as I come from that space previous to this big boy world of CEO and large brand or medium, I guess we're a medium brand here at Pepper Lunch. It's fun to have these chats and get to know about these executives, these leaders, and how they're building these businesses. So today I have the pleasure of having Adam Sanders on the call.
Yeah, nice to be here, Troy. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Adam's the CEO of Killer Burger. We're going to get to know him and his brand right after he answers the famous first question. What does hospitality mean to you?
Yes, hospitality to me is just all about the experience you deliver for the guests. So it very much relates to where you are and what your concept is. I mean, what hospitality means for Pepper Lunch or for a fine dining restaurant is very different than what it probably means at Killer Burger. But what I want it to mean for us is that we treat a guest in a relationship where they come in, they get good service, they get a good product, and they get an overall experience that exceeds what they would expect for that type of atmosphere.
Yeah, I love that. Exceeding expectations, especially in a particular service type or genre. Burgers, like, burgers are burgers are burger. It doesn't have to be. It can be a different experience, right? I don't think people are lining up at In and Out just for the burgers. I think it's burger, price, consistency, quality, experience, all those things together. So I love that you brought that up. Tell me, Adam, where does your mindset, how did you develop that muscle? Where does that come from in you coming up from a sort of a mixed background outside of hospitality?
Yeah, so prior to working at Killer Burger, I worked for Craft Brew Alliance and Anheuser-Busch. And don't get me wrong, love beer is a big part of, what it, but what I really like about it is it's a venue to bring people together, right? So me and my buddies, when we'd want to go hang out, once got married, we got later on, we'd go to a pub and we'd get beers and talk for a couple hours over that. And that's what I want to make sure that, Killer Burger, whatever is a part of that. So it all just comes back to what is that experience that you're giving the consumer? So when they walk in the door, are they getting a place where they feel like they can have that type of conversation atmosphere to relax, can let down their guard a little bit, and hopefully enjoy some good food at the same time. But really just give them an experience that allows them to do what they want to do in the restaurant and meet with who they want to meet with.
That's awesome. Adam, tell us a little bit about your background. As I referenced, didn't necessarily come up in hospitality. Talk to us a little bit about your bio and where you come from and how you landed here, and then we'll get into it a little bit.
Yeah, so I've been straight finance for a long time. So I did finance consulting for about 10 years with Moss Adams, mostly on business valuation and transaction related work. So a lot of that has to do with tax and advisory type of work. Sometimes it's dissolutions, just business investment. It's about as pure a finance role as you can get because ultimately there's someone else on the other side always looking at your work, whether it's, a different party or the IRS. So you're able to get as theoretical as you want and come up with concepts, which sometimes in the real world work and sometimes don't. Once I started getting on this side of the table and seeing how investment bankers do work, you're like, wait a second, that's not how we would do it. But it's just the reality of what finance is. But did that for about 10 years. And at that point, got recruited to go over to Craft Brew Alliance, where I was there to form some partnerships. Craft beer is much better from a local perspective. Again, back to the hospitality part, bringing in your local people to a brewery that they have in their own community is much better. So I was recruited to form some partnerships with different breweries across the country. Did a little bit of that. Ended up purchasing all of those while I was there as well for Craft Brew Alliance, and then stuck around and helped us transition and sell over to Anheuser-Busch, where I worked there for 18 months or so, doing integration work for part of it, and then also doing e-commerce for the 21 craft brands, doing everything from just Instacart and that type of work to other purveyors online, but ultimately just trying to increase e-commerce. And at that point, wanted to get a little bit closer back to finance. That was more of a kind of marketing role, and they wanted me to move to New York, and I decided this was a better opportunity. So I came to Killer Burger because one, I was a fan of the burger way before I started working here. Used to go back there in my consulting days. So I knew it was, best burger in town. At this point, it was time to try to grow the brand and get a little bit bigger. And opportunity came up, so I came over as CFO.
And then you became CEO when? About a year ago, you said?
Just about a year ago, yeah. Prior CEO I was working with, great guy, took another role, and I'm lucky enough to sit into the seat.
Awesome. Very cool. Let's talk about a couple of concepts in the middle. Let's talk about this industry. I love that you're kind of coming from outside of it or adjacent to it, and now you've been in the restaurant business for a little while, and now you're in the hot seat, so to speak. Talk a little bit about how you envision taking care of the guest. How is Killer Burger different in its guest experience versus, as we said before we started recording, we're talking a little bit about, a burger's a burger's a burger, but it's really not. And how does Killer Burger differentiate?
Yeah, so having a great product is, I almost say, like the table stakes, right? When I used to acquire craft beer brands, I'd sit down with them and you'd sit and like 80% of them had good beer, and I'm like, great, that's good. And we only still did a handful of deals because that's just the starting point. And I think it's the same with burgers as well. Like we have to have a great burger, and we do. But the bigger thing is we want people to come in and have the overall killer burger experience. So you come in, and we like to say it's an oasis from your everyday life. So there's no politics, there's no trouble. Our music's a little bit louder. You come in as you are. So we have people in suits, we have people that are blue collar workers, carrying a hard hat in, and that's perfect, right? We want people to come in as they are, enjoy it. Depending where location you're at. If you're in Portland, our crew's probably a little bit more tattooed up and some different color hair. If you're in like maybe a smaller community, they represent what that community looks like. But ultimately, you want the people to come in and be comfortable. Forget about the other day everyday troubles and just have a burger and a beer. I mean, the founder envisioned it with a burger in one hand, beer in the other. You never set it either of them down.
Nice. I love that there's a really specific ethos or there's like a purpose behind the experience. I think that's all about building brand, right? I think at the beginning you have that, and the question is, can you hang on to that, right? Is that a brand identity? Is that understood at all levels so that as you get bigger, you don't sort of start to wash away some or dilute any of those ideas. And being from the Pacific Northwest, I think you guys have a stronger foundation than something that might have been manufactured in in a big city idea to be scalable. I think you guys are a little more organic, if you
Yeah,
will.
it's such a weird concept when you try to go from this smaller, little bit rebellious brand to grow into a bigger corporate side because you have just the need of the brand to evolve, to have better tools, better facilities, all those types of aspects that the consumer or guest wants. And then you have, some of your core long-term employees are like, no, this is what Killer Burger is. We're rebellious. We do this. I mean, back in the day, people would come in, they'd ask for a salad, and you'd get essentially a plate of fries with extra meat on top of it. Which again, it's the rebellious nature, but it's not something we'd wanted to serve to a guest today. So we've had to evolve a lot of those things. But ultimately, what we've had to become a wider range as a brand. Where before it was we're classic rock only, and it's this certain type of atmosphere, and the people are this way. Till you go to another community, and like if people want to listen to country music, we should play country music, right? So it's more about the overall vibe within the restaurant and that creating that oasis where people are comfortable than any specific genre of music or any specific atmosphere, but truly just giving them that unique place where they can go and visit with their family and friends and have a good time.
So what's the model? Is it fast casual or is it full service? Tell us a little bit more about Killer Burger's design and what it's all about.
Fast casual, come in, order at the counter. We're almost the opposite of Five Guys. We're Five Guys. You go up there and they have like a certain, you order a burger, but you get whatever you want on it. We have 10 to 12 unique burger builds at any given time. They're all very indulgent, a little over the top. Our number two selling burger is peanut butter pickle bacon burger. And it's yeah,
Whoa.
and it's only number 2 because half the people come in to say, "I want a burger," they end up getting a classic,
Regional
right? But incredible burger. I mean, definitely invite you to come out to Portland when they have one here. But ultimately, order at the counter, fast casual, try to get, reasonably good ticket times. We do serve it to the guests at their table. We've gone back and forth on that. That's one of those things we try to do to provide a little bit better hospitality. I don't know at this point if that's what the guest expects or wants anymore, as opposed to, I think there's a lot of options to try to meet them where they are. But do that, and then ultimately they enjoy the burger. We bust the tables for them and be on their way.
And you have beer and wine,
We do have beer and wine at every location. Yep. And
so I can have a beer in one hand and a burger in the other. Sounds like the burger might be a little too big for one hand, but I got big hands, so we'll try.
just now adding milkshakes too. It's one of those things as a brand we didn't do for a long time because we thought it was outside of our target audience. But it's evolved so much where it's we're serving just a wider consumer base now. So trying to have the milkshakes and entice the families to want to be there as well as a need.
I'm glad I had lunch right before this call, but I'm still hungry again. Actually, as I think about what you're talking about, I'm just imagining. And by the way, I'll be in Portland. We are opening a pepper lunch in
Oh,
Portland in March, so
perfect.
I will certainly be up there in the next few months. I will definitely come by Killer Burger, no
It'll give
doubt.
us a good
Um,
option to try each other's food.
Indeed. So, Adam, talk a little bit about the growth journey for this brand. I think one of the key audiences of this podcast is emerging brand founders and leadership teams, young small brands that are on a growth path. Let's talk to them a little bit about how Killer Burger has grown from a early days corporate model up to 6 stores now in the franchise system with 20 some stores and sort of growing concentrically out from the Northeast. Talk to us about the plan and how you've gone about growth and what some of those pitfalls have been and how the brand's overcome growing that way.
Yeah, so the brand decided really early on that it was going to go into the franchising space. I think there was probably 6 or 7 restaurants, and first started franchising a location in 2017. When I started here in 2021, we were 10 corporate locations and 4 franchise locations. And at that point, the decision was clearly made by, all of our investors, including the founder, that we were going to go the direction of franchising. So we decided we're not going to play in the middle. I'm going to try to convert the stores that should be franchises to franchisees. We still hold some so that we can train in that way, and then we're going to try to continue to grow the franchise model. So we went from that point where we had, again, 10 corporate stores, 4 franchise stores with 4 different franchisees, to now having 8 franchisees, 20 franchise stores, and another 15-ish signed up for, with that same group, and down to 4 corporate locations, 5 that we sold, 1 that we closed, just a bad real estate decision kind of during COVID. So we had to move on. Ultimately, the goal to push towards franchising. So where we are now is we're Oregon, Southwest Washington, a little bit into Idaho, with more expansion coming real soon in the Boise area, and then down in Texas with 2 stores in San Antonio, and hopefully adding a few more early next year, and then going to a few other markets in Texas real soon.
Nice. Texas.
Yeah.
Boom. Big jump. Everybody's hopping over to Texas.
Yeah, it was a unique decision because as a brand, we were starting to talk to people both on the investor side and other franchisees. They said, "Love the burger, love the experience, but does it travel?" Right? So the founder decided, you know what, he wanted to move anyways. Own personal reasons, decided I'm going to go to San Antonio, and we're going to start down there as a franchisee as well. Right? So really unique situation that I have both a founder that is, owns the majority of the business, plus as a franchisee as well, but treated him just like any other franchisee. Now has 2 locations down there, with again 3 more under lease that are coming in the next year and a half ish, and probably more from that point. But it really is a catalyst for us to then have almost a second home market and grow out from there as well, and then just try to fill in the gap, which is a substantial gap,
Yeah, that's a
obviously.
pretty unique environment, but smart, right? You have again the brand ethos went with him. Like the founding mindset is there for the first store and stores coming up from there. So, but I'm going to be very curious. We can talk about this over a beer privately. But how do you do an audit of the franchise store in San Antonio when the owner of the franchise is the founder of the brand? That's going to be fun.
It definitely gives us some unique
I'd
challenges,
like
right?
to see a low
Yes,
mark on the
yes.
checklist and be in the room for that conversation.
Yeah, it's very
That's fun.
different, but to this point, it works. It's nice to have this feedback, having it close to the brand, and it gives them, a lot of incentive to want to continue to create and be innovative and work with me on what we want. And this point's been good.
Tell me about this journey though and the challenges when when you're small and you got, 10 stores and you're going to start franchising, you convert a handful of them over and you start selling franchises. Talk about the constraints of resources and availability. How do you give a franchisee everything they need to be successful and have all those systems and support, but yet you're still so small? How do you manage that process and how have you overcome and grown through
I,
that?
yeah, I think it's been the biggest challenge since I've been here. So when I started, the tech stack was extremely limited. We didn't do a lot for the franchisees. I mean, quite frankly, uh, we didn't charge them a marketing fund or brand fund at all. There was the royalty in place. We initially put in the brand fund and said, okay, we're going to start doing stuff here. But you'd have to have franchisees that believe in what you're doing and believe in the opportunity. In trade offs, the value of having this very polished system that goes in front of them for having a little bit more ability to influence their own future here and what they want. So there's not a lot of brands where the franchisee can call up, the CEO and talk to him about ideas. I talk to every single franchisee at least on a monthly basis, if not more, but also just, their ability to work with them. So we've added all the tech partners we should do, got tools in place. But because of that, we've tried to stall franchise growth a little bit as well, because I want to make sure that we're selling a product that we can stand behind and really believe in from a franchise perspective, not just selling something on paper that looks good and then have them fail. Because you and I both know, like, my biggest job is to make sure the franchisee makes money. And that's if they don't make money, nothing else works. So we have some corporate stores, we have franchise stores, but I care significantly more about my franchise stores than my corporate stores every single day. 'Cause my corporate stores are where I test stuff, where I can train people, that type of stuff. But the franchise stores is what's the future. So we got to make sure that they are doing good and growing that. And then, I mean, one of the biggest benefits of having the founder in Texas is as we expand to a new market, logistics, distribution, all that kind of stuff isn't easy, especially with the first store in a new market. It let us learn a little bit that way with a little bit less painful, experience where he can understand if I say, hey, we messed up, we'll get this one right next time, where someone else might not be quite as understanding.
I live that life, that's for sure. As we're growing to multiple states, I tell my franchisees, please get 3 stores open as fast as you possibly can, because living on this one store life is hard for everybody. I assure you. Support from us is and you living on one store, but also all of your vendor and distribution partners. Right? You gotta get them some volume. You gotta make a stand so that they can support you more consistently and not have some of those early days hard situations that you got to deal with, and they always do, they come. But like you said, a relationship with the franchisee matters, and I like that you're building it more organically or more authentically. Like you're being very transparent and very honest with your franchisees, saying, look, we're not we're not promising you this is McDonald's over here. Okay, this is early days and you're going to take a ride, and we need you to be aware and work with us on that. So I appreciate that. I think sometimes we all tend to oversell or over polish something, and then we have to say, hey, we're there, we're getting there, we're almost there, come on, wait for it, it's coming. So I think that's important to be clear, for sure.
And also, I mean, besides just franchisees on your own team perspective, like our team's little. We've slimmed down some. We had roles that weren't necessary at this point that we'll need in a year or two, but we've got really lean. We've outsourced a lot of things where it's needed until we can get another headcount there that justifies it. But it's put a lot of strain on the team. So again, really lucky to have a team that believes in it long term as well and wants to grow it. Luckily, they've all stuck around, which is fantastic, and helped us and believe in grow and believe in what we're trying to do. While every franchisee has at least doubled their commitment, while we've been here.
So, Adam, let's talk a little bit about you. I don't every day get to talk to the CFO that became the CEO, and you were there for several years, and the opportunity presented, so you took advantage to step into the role. Talk a little bit about that transition and how you approach the chief executive role, and how do you balance that mindset from the CFO side as well?
Yeah, it's so even going back early in my career, I've never been the traditional finance guy. I mean, we talked earlier about if I was an accountant, and quite frankly, I've always been more the forward-looking type side of finance versus the backwards looking. So I've always wanted to dabble in what does the future look like? What kind of levers can we pull to do better and strategically make a difference? So even when I was with CBA or Anheuser-Busch, it was always this forward-looking modeling. So I think it made the transition quite a bit easier because I care about the past, but only to the point that it influences our decisions to the future. And I like having a good grasp of the finances. I think it's important for a CEO, obviously, to know all those types of things. There's been a lot of areas where I've had to either rely on my team or try to pick stuff up a lot. And quite frankly, I get in conversations sometimes and I talk to other CEOs, they tell me what they're doing, and I'm like, I didn't even think of that. That's a big issue. But so I very much learning coming from the finance side has helped me be grounded that way. It significantly helps when we're a small company because CEOs can tend to get out in front of themselves and say, with all this growth, we have all these things in front of us. And I was like, nope, we have to be cash flow positive first. So let's focus on the cash flow and let's grow at the rate that we know we can help, grow the business. We can give franchisees what they need as we get more money without putting anybody at risk. So I think that mindset has helped a lot from a small company perspective, but it's also time then for me to, start looking at what else can we do to adapt and it push the lever down a little bit harder.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool to look at it that way. That there are a lot of operations based CEOs out here, and we want to set the world on fire with every possible option and opportunity, initiative, project, campaign, etc. And you bring a grounded, more strategic, more visionary, level headed approach. I think also being the size that you are, that the founders are not the CEOs. I do see that. I think a lot of the people listening are founder CEOs. I just talked to another gentleman right before you, and similarly, he got to like 45 stores before he, or 40 or 45 stores before he handed over the reins and found a CEO. And different businesses have different metrics and different financial opportunities, but I think it's important for founders to get in the seat they're best and most comfortable in. And if that's not being the CEO, that's great. If it is what if it is the finance person, or more often than not, it's creative or marketing or food and if it's a chef founder, it's going to be food and menu innovation, things like that. But I think it's important for founders of small chains that as soon as they can get out of the leadership role of trying to run the whole darn thing, but that they could hand the reins over to somebody who can professionally develop the brand and the team and the systems. I think that's an important mindset to be aware of. And I think a lot of brand founder, owner, operators struggle with that handover. And I think it holds them back in growth.
Being a founder is such a unique role, and you have to have such a different mindset and be creative and take risks and all these things that are so important to get the business going from day one. And like, I candidly, I don't know if I have a lot of those things, right? But it's also different skill set than you have to take the business from 20 or 30 stores to up to 100 or whatever it may be. So it's hard to find people that have both of those. I've done a lot of M&A work in the past and typically haven't seen it. There's a few great exceptions out there, obviously, but typically I know where my limitations are and I know where the founders are, and I'm really lucky to still have them, at the table where we can talk and him be a part of the business and still use them in the right ways, and I can focus on my areas.
Yeah, for sure. So as we start to wrap up, Adam, you talked about sort of this tempered approach, but let's pretend we're sitting here a year from now, or I'm going to run into you at RFDC next year in November in Las Vegas. Where is your future looking mindset after this next year? So the end of 2026, what does growth look like for Killer Burger? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is to continue to grow responsibly, right? So as we're very strong in our market here in the Portland area, opportunities for us to go up towards Seattle. I think just the labor and economic market makes it really tough right now to go that way, but also to head east. So we're going to be going Boise, Salt Lake into Montana, and then also growing from Texas, where again, right now we have 2 stores in San Antonio. I think by the end of next year, say we'll have 5 or 6 stores in Texas. But there's so much opportunity in Texas. It's so big. They're really making it to a point where it makes sense from a distribution perspective, a consumer perspective. I mean, you have to have a little bit of critical mass for a brand like us for people to know, you know, oh, Killer Burger is a brand we should go to. It's not just the mom and pop shop stop, that may be good or may not be good. So helping us to get that level of critical mass and then try to find the right partners to help fill in some of those bigger cities kind of in between. I've talked to a lot of people. Some of them have been fantastic and not been the right fit yet. Some of them might be the right fit at the right time, but just continue to have those conversations so that when we get to the point where it's the right time for us to expand into those cities in between and help fill in the dots, it's everything's available.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. Sounds good. Well, let's see. I might be in Texas again before I'm in Portland, but it'll be a race for me. I'm excited. I think I just spent a week in Austin for a conference and seeing some friends and family while I was there, and it was really obvious that not that I don't need Wendy's and Jack in the Box on every corner, but it was really obvious that at least that part of Texas with Austin, there's an opportunity. I mean, there's Whataburger and you can get a burger to every other pub or whatever, but not really a purposeful place of gathering that I think Killer Burger is trying to cultivate. So that's and no offense to Jeff Chandler at Hop Dottie. Hop Dottie's
I was
amazing.
gonna say
And
Hot Dog is
based
a
in
really good, a
Austin,
really
but
good brand down there as well. So
yeah,
again,
yeah.
but
I was trying to avoid calling out the competition, but
no,
yeah, that's basically who you'll be working against. But boy, there's a lot of room for everybody in Texas, as you said.
yeah,
So
yeah, I have a ton of respect for where they do a great job. So it's, um, I think there's just so much opportunity down there to provide this a little bit better burger, especially as if you looked over the last year or so, you've seen QSR prices come up pretty significantly. Casual dining is actually coming down, and it's squeezed in the middle a bit. But for someone who wants to
yep,
come in and get a really great quality burger in a pretty good time, and their ticket times are about 7, 8 minutes for everything being cooked fresh. We don't hot hold anything. So you do all of that and give someone this really great experience. If they don't have an hour to sit down for casual dining, I think there's a need for it in the market. And again, the product speaks for itself. There's no issues there.
that's awesome. Adam, it's been awesome getting to know you, learning about Killer Burger, your journey. I look forward to seeing you in person in November at RFDC, and I appreciate you coming on the Pineapple
Thanks,
Perspective.
Troy. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.